Dudes, you guys are gonna go back in time. Yeah! You are going to have the most excellent adventure through history.
Really cool that, like Bill and Ted, the positivity that they have. And, you know, when I meet people who have seen the films and like them, you know, it's like they say Bill and Ted and they smile. Right. You know, it just kind of, you know, there's some light that comes from these characters, and it's cool to be a part of that.
Whoa! Oh, I hate that part. Bill, what? Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Chris and I came up with the characters of Bill and Ted in an improv group that was formed solely for the purpose of us all just pushing ourselves comedically. We rented a stage in Hollywood one night a week, never had an audience, and we would just screw around to try to do improv exercises or come up with sketches. And one random day, a few months in early '83, Chris suggested, hey, what if we do guys who know nothing about history studying about history? And one of us was Ted, one of us was Bill, and we just started going with it. And about a year later, we thought, let's put him into a little 7-minute sketch in a compilation of sketches. And then it was Chris's dad who, when Chris was talking about this idea, said, they sound like they could be in their own movie. Why don't you do that? And we thought, hey, yeah, why don't we do that? So that's how it happened.
Well, the way I landed this role, going all the way back, was through an extremely long and arduous audition process that was unlike anything I had experienced, even though I had been acting by then for quite a long time. Thankfully, I met Keanu really early on, and we sort of soldiered through it together. And didn't expect necessarily to be cast, but that was kind of the happy byproduct of all of that labor. But it was also a really fun experience.
Yeah, when we went through the audition process, they had all of the artists who were auditioning playing both roles. And so I guess when I remember that I went there thinking that I was playing Bill, but then I was told I was playing Ted. Ultimately I was okay with that. I didn't turn around and say, I'm not doing this movie, I'm playing Bill.
The history of Bill and Ted getting made is the same in the first movie as it is in Face the Music, meaning it was hard. We wrote Bill and Ted as a spec script. It got us fired from our agents that were representing us because they hated it so much. A young agent that we had known for a couple of years, or I had met a couple of years earlier, read it, and he liked it. It got set up at Warner Brothers, actually. We did a series of rewrites for Warner Brothers, almost every one of which almost made it way worse, and then we would return back to kind of what we had initially thought we were going to be doing in the first place. But finally, Warner Brothers put it in turnaround. It got picked up by De Laurentiis, who financed it and then went bankrupt, I believe. And then the movie sat on a shelf for a year. Then Nelson Entertainment picked it up, and finally, in 1989, it got released.
You have sunk my battleship.
Excellent! Yeah!
Bogus Journey had a very interesting creative path. You know, it was the first time that Bill and Ted ended up playing different versions of themselves, whether it was being dead or evil robots, which was thrilling and so fun to do. And then there was this other aspect of, you know, like the Easter Bunny, which this idea of bringing kind of horrors of our past, our childhood fears. And in the process of making the film, it became what it was, you know. So there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it all kind of went into this really incredible, rich feast. Unique meal.
Probably within weeks of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure opening, there started to be discussions of like, well, we should do a follow-up. And of course, Ed and I, we wanted to do a follow-up. There were a couple of takes, and one of them was kind of a repeat. They have to pass, basically it's the next school year, and they have to pass an English report. And so in order to pass their English report, they go into Romeo and Juliet, and they go into Huckleberry Finn, and they interact with those characters. It ended up being just time travel with a kind of a little meta twist on it. And the other idea was, well, they die and they go to hell, and evil robot versions of them kill them and send them to hell, and they have to work their way back from hell. And that seemed much funnier to us. That seemed much more, as we opened it up, it was like funny scenes seemed to present themselves, a seance, or the studio wasn't really into it. They were not in favor of that. They liked the other one a lot better. And it ended up being Alex and Keanu, of course, because it always ends up being Alex and Keanu in Bill and Ted world, that we got their support. And they made it very, very clear that they weren't interested. And they wanted to break new ground. I think they loved the idea of playing evil versions of Bill and Ted. I think they liked how kind of strange and surprising it was. And so we got it made because the guys were into it. It's a strange movie. There's some strange jokes in it. And I think they got through because it was rushed. And to a certain degree, there wasn't just time for the studio to say, that's too weird. What is that even doing in there? And so we got some very peculiar jokes in.
When we did Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and then Bogus Journey, we actually thought that was the end of the Bill and Ted story. We wrote Excellent Adventure as essentially adolescents. We were in our early 20s. And Bogus Journey as young men. And I think for both of us, we felt like, okay, that's it. Bill and Ted is an expression of that part of our life. And it wasn't until about 2003, 2004, something like that, that we started exploring, what if we did a third movie? What would that movie be? It wasn't until about 2007 that we started talking to Alex and Keanu about it. I know in press, Alex and Keanu, over the course of that time, we're starting to get more and more questions about, will there ever be another Bill and Ted movie? And Keanu used to say, no, 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 no. And then one interview, I don't remember where it was, he said, I'd be open to that. And Chris and I, we called each other and said, did you see that? Do you think it's a possibility? And in 2007, we went to Alex Winter's house, the four of us, to talk about the possibilities. There was never a different version of this movie that was going to be made. The ideas in this movie are the one that the guys signed off on, and we tried desperately to have made for the last 10, 12 years.
We knew the end point from the beginning. We knew how internally, emotionally, we felt it had to end.
I love the script for Face the Music, and I think that Dean Pariseau, the director, made a really charming, fabulous film. You know, it's not often you get to play a role that has the language like this in the comedy, you know, so it's really fun to get to kind of spread your wings and have this language and have these characters and in these kind of, you know, what's at stake in the films, whether it's unite the world, save reality. You know.
I love the dialogue, as Keanu was talking about, and the richness of the characters and the different characters that we get to play. That's, you know, a rare thing to get to do. But I really love performing with Keanu. It's just an incredibly gratifying thing to do. We have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot, but there's a lot of kind of a very sort of instinctive physicality between the way we work. And that's a rare thing to have, you know, with someone that you're acting with. So I really enjoy that. And it was really fun to kind of be back in that playground again. But, you know, a lot of thought went into how we were going to be these guys at this age and not make them cartoon characters, not make them try to feel like they were clinging to some version of themselves from the past, but that we were going to bring all of our life experience to Bill and Ted now, you know, despite the innocence of these characters. And so we worked a lot on that.
I also just want to say it's really cool that, like, Bill and Ted, the positivity that they have. And, you know, when I meet people who have seen the films and like them, you know, it's like they say Bill and Ted and they smile.
Right.
You know, it just kind of, you know, there's some light that comes from these characters, and it's cool to be a part of that.
Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes!
I think the sentiment of it is really just be the best human you can be. And if you do that, then you can party on. You know, that you're going to be safe, you're going to be supported, you're going to get the gift of of giving. You're going to get the gift of receiving. You're going to get the gift of sharing. And we're just some humans on a rock in space. And so it's kind of nice to kind of promote that idea, give it a little, bring it in, a little group hug.
I've always interpreted those two sayings joined together the way they are as Bill and Ted is really about friendship, which means it's about community, which means it's about sort of the interconnectedness of people and being compassionate about that interconnectedness. And I think for me, that Bill and Ted has always been about being compassionate to your fellows, but also engaging with life. That's what the party on part has always meant to me, of just like, you can be compassionate and still just live in isolation or just not, and this is really like, Bill and Ted are always like going out and onto these adventures with like optimism and hope and positivity. And so I think it's like, be kind to your fellow man, but engage with the world, like be out in the world. And that's a really cool message, I think.
Get out of your own head, stop thinking only of yourself, try to think of others. They matter as much as you do. Their lives matter as much as yours. And try to understand they're coming from someplace and they have their own inner lives. And this is all aspirational, by the way. I don't actually do this very much in real life, but in terms of what it theoretically means, this is what it means to me. Try to make other people happy when possible.
Well, I agree with Chris. The phrase "be excellent to each other" is aspirational. It's an aspirational way to live. It's impossible to do it all the time. But I think when you get into the headspace of Bill and Ted, that's their mentality, and it's just a better place to be. And so for me, it's just like, as a mantra, a nice place to try to start my day from, if I can do it. It's a great way to live. But truly, that's why playing the characters is so fun, because you're in a headspace that's really a fun place to be. And that's why they're fun to write. And I think that's why they're fun for Alex and Keanu to play.
Life, it isn't a wild stallions.
Let's rock!
Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.